Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through tonight's 8-game slate in the association. A lot of back-to-backs today, a lot of injury stuff. This feels like a very congested portion of the schedule, just naturally. In some ways, to me, this Wednesday slate feels like a Saturday slate in the sense that so many questionable tags, so many up in the air, like back-to-back situations because of the in-season tournament last night. 7 of the 16 teams participating today are on the back end of a back-to-back, including Dallas, Orlando, Minnesota, Atlanta, Philadelphia, the Lakers, and Portland. So we've already seen some funkiness on the injury reporting tags. I assume we'll continue to see more. Mike, with a injury-riddled, questionable tag-filled Wednesday, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Hashtag 20 after paying off already. Got some Damian Lillard sales. But yeah, there's gonna be more to come. I think we're gonna have to wait on Embiid. We still haven't seen the Lakers file yet for their back to back. So yeah, as you mentioned, all these back to backs, and like I don't think any of them play each other. So for me, it was really hard to write matchups, kind of not knowing for sure who was on both sides of the game. With the exception of there was one game that wasn't. Milwaukee and Toronto, which of course the Giannis probable tag pops up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just crazy, man. But yeah, this should be fun. Yeah, get on your sports books at 20 after for sure. It's gonna be that kind of day.
Yeah, it's challenging. I would much rather prefer if there were a way that the NBA never had back-to-backs, just generally. Like that would be a much better situation. Obviously, they can't because of they got to play 82 games, they got to fit into the TV windows and all that stuff. But it's in terms of doing the projection work, you just end up redoing stuff over and over and over again during the course of the day. It's really frustrating. Let's get into the game by game stuff. We'll start with Dallas and Washington. Big questionable tag here for Dallas is Kyrie Irving, listed questionable with the left foot sprain. They get blown out by New Orleans last night. Kyrie was projected to be chalky. I don't know if he ended up chalky last night, but was one of the plays we were panning against as bad chalk last night. Hopefully you were able to avoid there if you were behind the paywall with us. What are your instincts on Kyrie's availability tonight?
Yeah, not surprised. I was expecting a questionable tag here. Luka didn't get one, which is good news for him. He looks to be over his injuries with that left leg. But yeah, Kyrie had mentioned he was kind of tired going into it. He said he took off a month and a half, 2 months from basketball entirely in the offseason, and he's kind of ramping up in season. So I think he's going to play. I had actually a little bit more doubt the last time we had this back-to-back set because obviously the minutes are light, only 26 last night. I think they're kind of planning to start him questionable today. So just taking precaution here. So I would expect him to be in and probably play pretty full minutes. He was starting to get up there from minutes in a role standpoint compared to where he was early in the year from what I already just talked about. So yeah, expect him in, but you never know. It's Kyrie. It's a foot sprain. He's missed time with it before. It's the Wizards. So could be a spot to sit.
Yeah, and they do have 2 days off after this, so they have a little bit of a break in their schedule if they wanted to kind of test things out for him. On the Washington side, the only injury noted on the injury report is DeLon Wright, who remains out with a left knee sprain. Any notes on the Washington side of things tonight?
Oh, no, not really. Gal was back after the rest from their back-to-back set, so he should be back in there to kick out Mike Muscala. Somewhat interesting that after Wes Unseld said that Johnny Davis was going to play after the DeLon injury, he has not. They've kept him out, which has been great. We've seen Jordan Poole hit some minutes a little bit. Ty's minutes have been a little bit better. We're seeing a little more Bilal Coulibaly with the bench getting condensed. Kuzma minutes have been better. They played a really tight game despite a unbelievable loss with the what was it, like a 23-2 run to end the game or something outrageous like that. But yeah, this is good. They're tightening up the rotation a little bit. Certainly expecting Gallo back to broaden it a little bit. But yeah, I think the starters are in okay spots against the really weak rim defense in Dallas. And Poole's roles coming together here. He's starting to get some more usage, starting to get a little more handling. So yeah, I actually think Jordan Poole maybe could kind of get it going here.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical on Johnny Davis and just like I've seen too much variation in Washington's minutes from game to game right now that I have a hard time trusting. Kuzma seems very solid. Avdia and Poole seem the next most solid, but like I have a very hard time trusting them night in and night out with the way that we've seen like guys go from like pacing for 36 to pacing for like 22. Like it's been wildly inconsistent there. All right, let's move to Boston and Philadelphia. Boston not on a back-to-back here. Philadelphia is, but Boston's injury report is littered as if it were a back-to-back. Jaylen Brown listed questionable with a non-COVID related illness. Kristaps Porzingis listed questionable with a right knee contusion instead of contusion. A little typo on the injury report there. And Neemias Queta listed questionable for injury management. He's not a part of the rotation normally. Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis Q tags. We probably are going to see some injury-related stuff for the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know if these things are related in the sense that Boston might be more comfortable sitting guys out if Philadelphia does not play Joel Embiid tonight. What are your thoughts here on Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis and their questionable tags?
Yeah, late addition illness tags are never good. So I think Jaylen Brown, to me, seems like he's more likely to risk to miss this game compared to Kristaps. Yeah, I just can't read it based on that. And then Kristaps, City's game time seems pretty minor. He's been playing pretty full minutes, looked pretty fine. So I think he's going to play. If one is out, Horford's going to start, I would say, regardless. So if Jaylen Brown's out, they'll play a little bit bigger. If Porzingis is out, you'd obviously slot Horford in there. If they're both out, probably going to Sam Hauser here. They seem to like him. A lot of commentary from Joe Mazzulla about his defense. So if they're both out, I think they would go with the guards. That's Drew, Derek White, Hauser, Tatum, and Horford. But I would expect probably one to play here. We'll see if Jaylen Brown sucks it up in a game they probably want to get with Philly coming off a loss, trying to redeem themselves from losing them early this year. But other than that, we're mostly in the dark on Jaylen.
The next in line in the rotation, because you've seen them play like really tight, right? They played an 8-man rotation against the Knicks here. The next in line in the rotation, if we're starting to add new bodies into the mix, who would that be in this case with, assuming Jaylen or Kristaps missing? We know who gets elevated in the starting role, but who else gets elevated into the rotation?
Yeah, they would certainly bring in Luke Cornett for the big role, especially if Embiid's in, and then O'Shea Brissett, I think, would be next. I'm already including Peyton Pritchard if that wasn't obvious.
Yep.
So I think those guys would be the guys who kind of put in next there, and then maybe they want to get Lamar Stevens to help out with the Maxey assignment there for his on-ball defense. But yeah, definitely I would say they need bigs here if Kristaps is out. If it's just Jaylen, then I still think it would probably be more of a O'Shea spot. I think he would still find minutes here, getting additional size, switchability for the way they're going to run their game. And he's big enough to kind of help out if they do want to switch against Embiid. So I think it's O'Shea would kind of, if all things equal, I think O'Shea's probably the next guy in. If they're both out, then I feel way more better about Luke Cornett getting minutes.
All right. On the Philadelphia side of things, Nico Batum listed out for personal reasons. Tobias Harris probable with neck pain. Kelly Oubre Jr. still out for a while. And Joel Embiid, of course, questionable. Joel Embiid was questionable all day yesterday. Ends up being a game time decision. Ends up playing. Plays a ton of minutes in a close, fast-paced game against Indy. Puts up a huge line, 39, 12, and 6. Once again, this feels like it's got to be a rest spot for Joel coming up on the injury report twice in a row with the left hip soreness. It is a national TV game tonight, so there's the question mark on that. What are your thoughts on Embiid availability tonight? And without Nico Batum, do we get another crack at Robert Covington, the min-price play that did not work out so well last night for people?
Yeah, so Embiid, we did the song and dance a lot last year. And early on, when this was happening last year, we were like, oh, this is the time. This is the time. This is the time he misses. And he kept kind of playing. So I kind of think he's in. Certainly a huge matchup, national TV game. Came out okay. He wasn't really injured. He's had this hip tag on him for a little bit. And he's been playing through it. So I'm expecting him to be in. We know last year they would just list him questionable, much like how the Lakers do stuff, So I'm kind of treating it more like that than anything. But again, it's early. I don't know. He could miss this one. Huge workload right now for him. So expect him to play. Obviously, if he doesn't, you'd be looking at a lot of Paul Reed, Mo Bamba behind him. Massive Maxey spot there in a tough matchup, seeing a lot of Drew Holiday. But the role could just be so big. So yeah, we are almost certainly not getting this news until the 76ers social media team tweets out the lineup, which is what happened yesterday. So if you want to be really quick on betting Maxey stuff, get if you want to be like me, put 76ers social on your notifications, and then 30 minutes before the game, you'll get the notification. You know what to do. So
Yep.
that's my life right now. That's how I roll. But yeah, so expecting that. But again, I think he's in. We'll see.
Yep. Chat saying that Porzingis said that Embiid is out. Any thoughts on that? I don't know why
Great.
Porzingis would have that
Yeah,
information.
yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would
I
imagine
missed
that.
that, but
Yeah, I would imagine that a player on an opposing team would not have that information,
mhm.
but it could have just misheard something,
Yeah.
Um, on to we saw last night Covington played just 16 minutes. They ended up going kind of on the smaller route in elevating Pat Beverly a little bit more. What are your expectations in terms of that kind of fifth starter slash leader in minutes role for Philadelphia?
Yeah, just looking at this Porzingis thing, and the quote was, "I guess he's not playing tonight either." Right? I don't know. Is that news to everyone? So he's kind of joking around.
Yeah.
Sorry, could you repeat the question there?
I was saying we saw Patrick Beverly elevated last night from a minutes
Yeah.
perspective instead of Robert Covington, who was the fifth starter. How do you foresee that kind of fifth player with Kelly Oubre now out, with Nico Batum now out, in terms of the fifth player in minutes for Philadelphia? How do you see that shaking out? Is this a game by game matchup oriented thing? What are your
hmm
thoughts there?
Yeah. So that's the key here. Who torched them yesterday? Tyrese Halliburton. Who, my God, 32 dimes, no turnovers last two games. Little different here. You don't have to worry about the guards as much in this matchup as much as you do with the wings. What's Robert Covington? He's a wing defender, and Nick Nurse has called him as such. So I feel way more better about Robert Covington's minutes today than I did yesterday. So yeah, I'd expect Patrick Beverly to get dialed back a little bit. Now, if Jaylen Brown doesn't play, I would dial back that stance I just said a little bit. But I do think this is a significantly better spot for Robert Covington than it was yesterday.
All right. Let's move to Milwaukee and Toronto. Milwaukee, we got the notice that Giannis Antetokounmpo's probable tag once again turned into an out
Mhm.
tag. Seems to have a propensity to do that. Jay Crowder still
Mhm.
listed out with a groin strain. What are your thoughts on how the Bucks handle the absence of two key front court pieces of their rotation?
Yeah, so just wanted to note this. New injury. He got listed with right calf injury management. That is the exact same tag that Damian Lillard got tagged with the last game, which he missed a couple games for. So I was like, did they just screw up putting it on the wrong player? It was very odd to get an injury management tag on a new injury. But as you mentioned, anyone who's watched this show at a 1:30 every freaking day, Giannis or somebody with that probable tag, it's at 1:30 every day. They update it every time. So the 128 injury reporting, when anytime there's a Bucks probable tag, you got to be ready. So yeah, not surprised, unfortunately, that he got ruled out. So that brings up next question: who starts now? In the old regime with Budenholzer, we would say Bobby Portis, easy game, don't even say anything, which I think makes the most sense. If they didn't have Jay Crowder, that I think we'd have a little bit of a debate on who could start, but I think they kind of got to start Bobby Portis. They're already overlapping them a little bit here. They certainly need the offense, and the spacing fits here, and a little bit of the size. We know Toronto still runs pretty big even without OG. So I feel pretty good Portis is going to start. Just not 100% confident. It's just I feel like they have to, but maybe it's Beauchamp, maybe it's Connaughton. It just seems really unlikely. So they would probably start Portis, bring in Robin Lopez behind his brother, a little bit more minute stealing at our Marjan Beauchamp. Malik Beasley also would benefit a little bit, as we know Middleton's going to have the cap. They're going to have to allocate more of their wings as more of 3-4s into 2-3s. So I think Malik Beasley has a better minutes floor in this matchup as well. Maybe we run some Cameron Payne overlap. Damian Lillard's minutes should increase here. He was on a minutes cap and still got the 32 despite playing really poorly in the last game. I would assume they actually did a pretty good job on him last game. But yeah, so that mostly sums it up. I don't think we'd be bringing in too much. They might condense a little bit. Andre Jackson would still be in the rotation to mostly be a threat to Malik Beasley, I guess. But yeah, I think that we don't really. I think it's going to be a little bit tighter than we're kind of used to. We used to always project 11, 12 people, I feel like, when Giannis would miss. But not having Jay Crowder, I think they kind of have to go a certain way.
Okay. Let's move to the Toronto side of things. You mentioned no OG Anunoby. He's listed as doubtful tonight, as is Gary Trent Jr. In addition, popping up late on the injury report was Dennis Schroeder with a questionable tag due to right knee soreness. What are your thoughts here? That's three of their top 6-ish rotation players here. So what are your thoughts on if Schroeder is unable to go, what things look like for Toronto tonight?
Yeah, so Schroeder hurt his knee last game, was hobbling around a little bit, checked out, but played a full workload, didn't play well overall. But yeah, not surprising. I think he's got a good chance to miss this game. That would probably be Malachi Flynn's music to get in the starting lineup. He's been picking up a lot of overlap with his OG stuff and, pretty thin wings. And I mean, they'd be real light in ball handling. They activated Marquise Noel the last game or 2 games ago, so he would be available, but I don't think they'd play him. So it would be a lot of Scotty ball handling, and we were waiting for like Scotty to really take off from a handling perspective. So he could just be, especially without Giannis. Their big wing defender bucket is getting a little thin here. So Scotty would be in a really big spot if Schroeder missed this game. But I still think Malachi Flynn would start. Does auto start? So we talked a lot about this on the DFS show a little bit yesterday. We talked a little bit about the injury show going into the slate, but he's on a minutes limit. Darko had mentioned that he'll be on a minutes limit and ramp up. It's going to be a long period of time. Now that Giannis is out, now they could start him, because I had some concerns that they may start someone else just to put another bigger body on Giannis. I don't know if they'd want to do that with Scotty. So I think Porter Jr. is probably more likely to start here. Should mention OG Anunoby hurt his hand from doing chores. So next time your significant other asks you to do chores, be like, hey, OG Anunoby hurt his hand. Which is what I said. I was like, hey, I can't do chores. I need my hands, when my girlfriend asked me to do some chores. But yeah, so just this kind of is very Jaylen Brown hurt his hand with a vase kind of thing from last year's playoffs. But anyway,
did she have any commentary about how she needs her hands, or no? Was that not discussed?
No, it was not. But
all right. Good. Good to know.
But anyways, yeah. So auto probably in the I haven't looked at the minutes for Toronto yet, but probably be like 16, 17, especially without Schroeder. But yeah, Chris Boucher played really well. Should shout him out. He got the I think what they have a defense. I think they have a defensive chain. I forget, or it's like a crown. Whatever their defensive player of the game thing is, he got that. He played really, really well there, and yeah. So I think that mostly kind of covers it.
Couple notes. We talked on the Established Run NBA podcast about Pascal Siakam being one of the big letdown players of the year so far. He's bounced back with 2 big games in the last 3 games. A couple of things that I highlighted on the podcast that I think are eating into his value long-term are the presence of Jakob Poeltl, preventing him from like closing as a center and getting all those rebounds and everything. And then Dennis Schroeder, whose ball handling role was cutting into Siakam a little bit. Well, last game, Poeltl doesn't close. They play with Siakam, and they played Precious Achiuwa a decent bit as well, and Boucher. Mm-hmm. So Siakam wasn't like a pure center, but it's a better spot to get rebounds against those guys than compared to against Poeltl. If Schroeder's out tonight, that opens up not only a ball handling role for Scotty Barnes, but also for Pascal Siakam as well. So Siakam and Barnes, really, really good spots here. And I mean, Milwaukee, we've talked about their defensive struggles all year long. Giannis is their best defensive player by a wide margin. So this is becoming a really enticing spot for the Toronto guys just naturally. Okay.
It should mention Siakam's role is back, baby. The drives are kind of coming back. Yeah, he looks like he's kind of rolling here after we kind of buried him on the podcast we did on Monday. And should also mention OG's out is a huge deal. Besides the obvious on-ball defense, without him on the court, they have 112 defensive rating. That's worst on the team. And then with him on the court, 102. So 10 points difference is and that's the best among the rotation players. So yeah, OG is a big deal, and that's kind of why we liked the Bucks situation here. But Giannis news was rough.
Yeah, tough times for your boy here, who thought he was getting ahead of the curve and forgot about the Giannis probable tag, and now is holding some dead Bucks -5.
Not dead.
Let's move to
Dame to the rescue.
Yeah, buddy, that hasn't looked very good this year. I like the fact that Dame demanded a trade to play with basically worse guys here in Milwaukee now. That really worked out well. Let's move to the Knicks in Atlanta. On the Knicks side, RJ Barrett still questionable with these migraines, which is a concerning thing. This tag has lingered kind of all season long. We saw it pop up again last game, and he was ruled out right before the game. We've seen this in the NFL with like Percy Harvin had battled concussions for a number of years and kind of had his career cut short. I don't think we're anywhere near that level of concern with RJ Barrett, but it's just a concern just naturally that he's continuing to deal with migraines. Any read, any indication on if we're going to see RJ Barrett available tonight?
No, not really. This is a long time for him. Usually it's just the one and done migraine thing. Like Dwayne Wade had it a couple times too earlier. Shout out Percy Harvin. That dude was a guy I couldn't resist drafting in fantasy. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, the analysis is easy here. We saw Josh Hart in a little bit of a more favorable spot. Again, I mentioned the wings on the Boston side kind of applies to Hart, so he benefited there. I don't think he'd be in for that many minutes, but yeah, think Barrett has a shot to
Yeah,
play.
so
But I don't have much to say.
that's a good question. If Barrett does sit, is this more because of Trey and DeJounte? Is this more of a DiVincenzo spot than a Josh Hart spot from a minutes perspective? Not saying DiVincenzo will play more minutes than Josh Hart, but just naturally when you're kind of divvying up those two guys, and Grimes are kind of the guys that you're thinking about. Quickly's role seems pretty stable regardless. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we know they would love to put Quentin Grimes on Trey Young, and he's generally done a pretty good job there. We'll talk about Trey in a second. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Hart would be, he would be kind of where he was earlier, when we'd be projecting him for what, like 31, 32, 33 or something along those lines, not something outrageous like playing 23 minutes in the first half of the Boston game.
Yep. Moving over to Atlanta, where Trey Young missed yesterday's game due to the birth of, I believe, his second child. He's going to welcome his third child into Atlanta today, the New York Knicks, who he claimed he was their daddy after a playoff series victory a few years ago. He's not listed on the injury report today at all, so it looks like a full expectation that Trey Young is returning. Any news or notes on the Atlanta Hawks?
No, just Trey will be out there. New dad narrative season against the team he likes. He's at home. So it should be good to go. Full workload with possibly some tired legs for his teammates. This game went down to the wire. We got real lucky on a Bogdan under. He did not really close as they went with a jump. And we talked about this on the DFS show that they like to play Hunter at the 2 sometimes to get Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson, and a center in there. And that's really what they went down the stretch. So pretty good analysis on us there. And expecting a pretty big role for Trey, shooting the ball a lot better. He's really kind of turned the corner as a finisher lately. So I think he's in a pretty okay spot. He's been iffy against Quentin Grimes, as I mentioned, but still I expect him to put up a pretty encouraging line. And DeJounte's also killed the Knicks just so line earlier this year, but last year he had really good numbers against them.
Yep. All right. Orlando and Chicago. Speaking of daddies, the Wendell Carter Jr. Trade, no longer the Nikola Vucevic trade. It's the Wendell Carter Jr. trade. Rears its ugly head in this one. On Orlando side, no Wendell Carter Jr., no Markelle Fultz, but Gary Harris listed available tonight. Second night of a back-to-back here for Orlando. They played really poorly yesterday in a blowout loss to Brooklyn. Jonathan Isaac, we're always concerned about on back-to-backs. He only played 12 minutes yesterday, so perhaps available tonight. Not listed on the injury report, I should note, so it seems like probably available. What are your notes here, and how does the return of Gary Harris impact things for the Magic?
Let me just start Jonathan Isaac. He hasn't played a back-to-back since 2019. He apparently is launching his new Bible shoes either today or tomorrow, so I guess shout out to him. So the Magic file early. They file first thing in the morning.
Are those do you know if those shoes are ones that you can walk on water, or like what's the deal with the Bible shoes?
I'm not even gonna go there.
No,
you could go back to it. But so the Magic file early, right? And they file first thing. Whoever files it, I think has no idea about what's going on here. So the last 3 or 4 times, probably maybe in 5 minutes, they just add Jonathan Isaac. Okay, we're gonna send him back to back. They do it every time. So yeah, we haven't projected in, but it's probably a 75% chance he's playing today because we always get the update. Anyways, yeah, Gary Harris should be back. Probably have a minutes limit on him. We know they've been really cautious with him. That'll squeeze the rotation a little bit. We'll see if Cole Anthony had a really long rotation in the second half. Man, we had an Anthony Black over that was just brutal. I think a 7-minute stint in the first half, and then they even cut a rotation out of him. They brought Caleb Houston in late second quarter, which would have been Anthony Black's rotation. So just a really, really rough one from him there. I think the milk's kind of going bad. This guy was kind of out of the rotation. So we'll see if, if there's a lineup change off a bad loss or anything along those lines. But yeah, we know the center minutes are going to be Goga and Mo Wagner covering most of that, especially if Jonathan Isaac's out. Joe Ingles played pretty well yesterday. He's locked in. And then, Cole, and that's mostly it. Jalen Suggs has actually been shooting the ball like crap, but the role's been really strong. He's been running a lot of on-ball stuff. The minutes have been pretty strong. Matchup's good, so I think Jalen Suggs looks to be a little sneaky today.
Do you think Gary Harris goes back into the starting lineup? Because that would seem to be like the natural kind of fit and replace. Like just move Gary Harris back in the starting lineup. He's still going to play limited minutes. You can still close with Cole Anthony, and then just kind of relegate Anthony Black if you're already like moving some of his rotation off for Caleb Houston. Like that seems like where we're heading. Is that your expectation tonight?
Yeah, I think so. And then kind of
Okay.
short leash for Black and all that.
Yeah. All right. Chicago side of things. This was another one that threw me for a loop this morning when I started working. Thought I had some like great bets lined up for us to fire off. Because on the injury report, DeMar DeRozan wasn't listed as out. Our projections had him out, and I was questioning our minutes guys, like, guys, what is going on here? You found the tweet that said DeMar DeRozan would be listed out for personal reasons, and 2 hours later on the injury report, it's updated now. So DeMar DeRozan is out tonight. Alex Caruso is questionable. They said they expect Alex Caruso to play at some point this week, was the hope. It's still early in the week for Alex Caruso to return. Patrick Williams listed probable here. The Bulls are not a very deep team, in part because, they drafted Dalen Terry a few years ago in the first round, and he can barely score like 8 points in the G League. So he's also listed out, by the way, with patella tendonitis. What are the Bulls going to do in the absence of DeMar DeRozan, potentially Alex Caruso as well?
Yeah, so they're probably going double big. We saw Patrick Williams actually play pretty well. Torrey Craig was off to a really big start here, 7 offensive rebounds, and I thought they kind of needed that. And I was a little surprised they didn't give Craig more leash, perhaps because I bet it over him, which hit. But yeah, so I think he's gonna be double winging it, especially when you got Franz and Paolo, 2 kind of bigger wings on the other end. So I think that makes a lot of sense. They would start Kobe, Levine, Craig, Paul. That's Patrick Williams. And Vooch, certainly Ayo Dosunmu in a pretty good spot. And Ayo closed over Kobe White. Kobe White had it going offensively, but after the game, Billy Donovan said they wanted some length to put on Dame, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, that, Dame kind of struggled with Ayo. So big credit to Ayo. He's kind of come back from the dead. So his minutes are pretty secure. He'll probably run. He was subbing in as a lot of 2-guard. So they might run it pretty tight with him and use Levine as a 3. So Ayo's, looking at minutes, I think, pretty solidly, and B, a candidate to start, because if they like his length, I think he could kind of hold up here. So not a lock that they start Patrick Williams, but I think it's very likely. But I definitely benefits from this. So Levine obviously has really taken a step back. His usage has fallen off. His not shooting as well. Obviously the trade stuff, which we could talk about, but he can get a chance to get right here against a Magic defense that has been slipping a little bit since Wendell Carter Jr. went down.
Yeah, I would say I think this matchup is better for Ayo off the bench just because Cole Anthony is like it's a better matchup to have him off the bench. Will note though that if they are without Caruso as well, this is a candidate for an 8-man rotation tonight. Because the drop off in play to Terry Taylor and whatnot is pretty big. And the Bulls have really struggled. This is a home game. Getting Orlando on the second night of back-to-back, like they need to win these types of games if they're going to hold on to the season at all. So I could see them playing 8 tonight, and 8-man rotations in the NBA usually bring out some fantasy value, just naturally. So I don't think we'd fully project it that way if Caruso was ruled out, because I think that would be probably an aggressive stance. You'll probably see some minutes for Phillips, for Taylor, just like hedging stuff. But I think there's a decent chance that they're playing an 8-man rotation tonight.
Definitely.
Okay.
Billy's done it before too. He'll play tight all the time.
Yeah, and the Levine trade stuff, like we'll see if Arturis pulls the trigger on this stuff. They've been really slow to like get away from this. They gave Vooch the extension in the offseason. Obviously, from a fan perspective, it seems like it's time to just reset on things. But man, like it's just everything around Bulls basketball is sad right now. It's just uninspired, sad. So yeah, I would not be surprised.
Yeah,
they're moved in the next few weeks.
Their starting lineup has the worst defensive rating in the NBA, the worst net rating in the NBA, and they're the worst rebounding lineup in the NBA. They're a wreck. So hey, it'll be a new lineup tonight, though. But
other than that, the season's going great. All right, let's move to Minnesota and Phoenix. Minnesota on the second night of a back-to-back here after the brawl, the WWE event that happened last night in Golden State. They play Phoenix tonight. No submission yet on the injury report unless I missed something come across at 2:30 Eastern.
Nope.
I'm not expecting to see anything. I guess Mike Conley would be the biggest concern, just because second night of a back-to-back for a veteran, but I don't think it's a big deal there. Jaden McDaniels, I don't think will deal with any sort of suspension after yesterday's game. I think the suspension is just all in the direction of Draymond Green. What are your thoughts here on the Wolves tonight?
Yeah, I don't think Jaden's completely safe because he did kind of get some contact near Clay's face. If they do that as a punch, that could be. But I think it's unlikely. Based on Woj's tweet, Woj's tweet was very Draymond centric. So, I think Jaden's okay. And he'll have fresh legs because he's going to be busy. He's going to get Kevin Durant. He's only had this matchup once in his whole career. And he's won it. And he's kind of kept Kevin Durant in check. I think it was 16 points in 29 minutes on pretty crappy shooting. So really tough spot for Kevin Durant. We'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, should be pretty locked and loaded. Karl-Anthony Towns, by far his best game of the season. Outstanding game from him on both ends. And the jump shot's coming. We talked a lot about this around 10 days ago. He was one of the worst jump shooters in the NBA. He has kind of caught it now. So Cat's kind of rolling. Ant's been great. Took a back seat last game. He was hanging mid-30s usage rate from November 1st prior to last night. So that came back largely because Cat was cooking. Conley's been great, man. I mean, the guy is just locked and loaded in his role. His defense has been pretty solid. Slow-mo. Yeah, he's just a winner, Nas has been good. Nas giving him good minutes as well. So we talked about this yesterday. This team's just loaded, man. And it's tough to beat. I'm really excited for this game. And I kind of want to go, but can't do it. It's too much work to do.
Yeah, I just got a little goosebumps thinking about Mike Conley's career. Guy was like such a good player in college, kind of overshadowed in college. Then in Memphis, like those teams always outperformed throughout his career. He's just been like super solid. Obviously known for like maybe being the best player to not make an All-Star game, right? Because he still never got that accolade. But man, just a really good player with a great career, and one of those guys that I don't know, that I'll probably like 20 years from now, I'll be like, oh yeah, Mike Conley. I remember that guy being pretty good. Like how I think about like Damon Stoudemire now or different guys like that. I don't know. It's kind of lefty point guards.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Phoenix side of things, where we will now have the big three, supposedly. Bradley Beal, probable. Devin Booker, probable. Jordan Goodwin, available. Eric Gordon, probable. Are the Phoenix Suns finally healthy? Do we finally get to see this experiment in the regular season tonight?
We should see it. Yeah, probable tags, but all indications are Devin Booker will be back pretty much 2 weeks of the day from a calf strain, which is on the short end of it. Usually it's 2 to 4. And that 2 weeks on a calf strain is a ramp up period. So he's been going through some practice, expecting him to have a minutes limit. I believe we have him at 32 minutes. He's blown through minutes limits all the time. So we'll see how the phrases come out, but we'd rather kind of start a little bit lower and work our way up there. So, Bradley Beal, at least 2 games, I've seen him laboring through his back injury from contact, from falling on the floor, whatever it is. So I don't know. He's been terrible too. His pick and roll game is among the worst in the NBA. His touches haven't been great. They've been running a lot of handling through Grayson Allen. Obviously, Kevin Durant's had a pretty big handling role. So, hasn't really been there. Matchup should be pretty good. I mean, there's no chance he's Jay McDaniels is guarding him. It's almost certainly going to be Durant, but it could be Booker just to kind of take the head of the snake off him. Devin Booker is 16 potential assists per game. Mentioned Beal being played as like a second side scorer. It's going to be the Booker show, especially if Kevin Durant is stymied by Jay McDaniels. I'm expecting Josh Okogie to get the start and draw the Anthony Edwards matchup. We saw him come off the bench for KBD, which they switched for Okogie to put on SGA. SGA and Ant, certainly a similar threat. SGA is certainly a little bit more dangerous, but the way Ant's been playing lately, it's tightening. So I think Okogie gets that assignment. Still should be pretty good minutes out of KBD, especially with the size on the other end. So should be that starting 5. Not 100% locked into Okogie, but I think it's likely. Watanabe, Goodwin's minutes should be tighter with Booker coming back, and then obviously Eubanks probably covering the full 48 here with the size that the Wolves have on the other end.
You think Goodwin for sure still in the rotation though? Like he's earned that spot?
I wouldn't say for sure. I think he is, but I mean
they have a lot of guards.
Gordon in there. Grayson Allen bumping back to the bench. He's pretty dicey, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm interested to see if they turn Bradley Beal for now, while he's still battling these back issues, into basically a spot up shooter.
Hmm.
His 3-point attempt rate so far has increased relative to his 2-point attempts uh, in past years, and that's something that you see as a natural progression when you shift down in usage in an offense. Your pecking order shifts down. You shift usually further out from the basket if you're a guard or a wing. So I'd be interested to see if Bradley Beal becomes kind of more of a spot up 3-point shooter, and that's like more of his threat offensively,
Yeah.
especially now when he's laboring through the back stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to Cleveland and Portland. On the Cleveland side of things, Darius Garland listed out with a neck strain. Really frustrating start to the season for Darius Garland from a fantasy perspective. Just has not been available. Had the hamstring thing. Now gets basically run over by JaVale McGee, trying to box out. Yeah, in the last game towards the end, it basically gets like a little bit of whiplash from it. Ended up finishing that game out in a blowout fashion, and immediately listed out with the neck strain the next game. Still no Isaac Okoro and no Ty Jerome. So they are pretty short-handed in terms of ball handling, which means a big role for Donovan Mitchell and likely Karis LeVert tonight. What are your expectations for Cleveland?
Yeah, huge minutes coming for Donovan Mitchell if they could keep this game. I guess if the Blazers could keep this close, or if the Cavs could keep close, they've been playing pretty crappy. So yeah, we've seen just. I think Mitchell could hit like 42, 43 minutes today. Comments from JB Bickerstaff saying his conditioning second to none. So yeah, really big spot. May actually see a lot of Jeremy Grant. They've been using Jeremy Grant on ball. This was a thing they did a lot last year, and I think Karis LeVert is going to start. We've seen them be a little apprehensive of putting Karis LeVert in the starting lineup, but without a Coro there, it's just too weird to start Dean Wade. We've seen 3 minutes combined on the season of Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Dean Wade front court. It's just too big and bulky. And I don't know. It doesn't seem like it fits to me. So I would expect them to start Donovan, LeVert, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. Should mention Jared Allen did not close even before this game got to garbage time. His minutes have really been down. Hasn't been himself lately. The defensive impact hasn't been the same. So we'll see. This is certainly the spot to do so. The Blazers allow the second most rim points in the NBA. They're second worst in at-rim possession per big game. So this is a spot for bigs to absolutely smash. So a get-right spot for Jared Allen if he can get his minutes up. On the bench, we know we'll see George Niang. We're going to get Craig Porter Jr. back in the mix, who's been playing phenomenal when called upon. So I'd expect those guys to be anchors. Tristan Thompson's kind of locked down those center minutes. Then Dean Wade, so that's kind of 9. We'll see if they bring in Sam Merrill, anybody like that. But I think they can run tight here. Bickerstaff is not happy. This team's 4-6. He had one of the most frustrating press conferences that he's had since I've been listening to him. So I think they could really run it tight and make sure they get this game. So really, really big on the Cavs. I would have covered boy Donovan Mitchell if I didn't cover boy him last time.
Yeah. Shout out to Craig Porter Jr. for cashing the plus 16.5 live line that I bet on the Cavs going into the fourth quarter. I appreciate him and the handsome one, George Niang's accomplishments down the stretch contributions down the stretch is the word that I was looking for. Portland side of things on the injury report, not yet submitted at the 1:30. Did they add anything at the 2:30? I'll get the 2:30 injury
Did not
in front of me now.
Not.
Okay, so any expectations on Portland on the second night of back-to-back here, what we could see from them?
So yeah, we're not expecting Brogdon. Guy pulls his hammy out. He's had hammy injuries before. Like I mentioned, it's a multiple week injury usually for that. So I think he'll still be out. So yeah, expecting the same starting lineup of Skylar Mays, Shaden Sharp, who actually looked tired yesterday for a change for a guy who's leading the NBA in minutes despite not starting every game. Tamani Kamara, my almost guy. If we're playing deep league draft, my guy draft, gets the start. Doesn't close though. They actually went a little bit more to Jabari Walker as a big. Went with a little bit of a bigger unit, but I think that he's going to start again. Obviously, Jeremy Grant, big foul trouble for him. Still put up a pretty good line in 27 minutes. A guy I was really high on yesterday, but the fouls were disgusting. Ayton, really strong game from him. Again, really good spot. Utah's rim defense is really bad, so those guys should start again. Obviously, Jamari Bouye looked awful. You could see why Miami got rid of him now with how poorly he's played. Duop Reith certainly getting all the most of the non-Ayton minutes there. I mentioned Jabari. And Matisse Thybulle's minutes still held up. So, yeah, you got your 9 right there. Expect that to mostly be a run-it-back situation. And we'll see if Shaden Sharp's minutes can actually come down here, which they're not going to. Spoiler alert.
Skylar Mays, just wanted to kind of shout out his production once again. I keep wondering, like, because Skylar Mays, when he got little stints with the Hawks in the past, he showed out all right. I kind of wonder, like, is he good enough to be here the rest of the year? Like, is Skylar Mays going to be on the Blazers the rest of the year and in the rotation, and like, or is he going to be a guy that floats around? Because we've seen this at times with the Blazers the last few years, where guys like come in for a few weeks and then they're released and they move on. But he's played pretty well. Like, I feel like his role, and it's a testament to that role, which we saw Brogdon crush in. We expect Anthony Simons would have crushed in it. We did not see Scoot Henderson crushing it, which is a little concerning.
Yeah.
But Skylar Mays, you expect him to hang it out the whole year in a rotation role for Portland?
Yeah, convert him to a standard contract. Malcolm Brogdon, A, can't stay healthy, and B, might get traded. So you're going to need another guard. So, yeah, I feel pretty confident that he's kind of here to stay. He, showed out down the stretch. He's off to a pretty good start this year. Huge handling role, 18.5 potential assists per game in the last two. So, yeah, don't see why he would. He can't really score that well. Maybe he could kind of get some things going with the drop and get that float game going.
He's got a little floater. He's got a little float game, but there's not much beyond the float game. There's the float game if you play drop coverage on him, but that's kind of what he's got. All right, Sacramento and the Lakers, the last game of the night to cover Sacramento side of things. No big notes here. De'Aaron Fox not listed at all, which is a great sign. Coming off of the doubtful upgrade to questionable to playing against Cleveland. He comes out clean from that game from the ankle sprain. Still no Trey Lyles, no Kobe Jones as he's on G League assignment, no Alex Len, who went through a right ankle sprain. That's why we saw JaVale McGee flying around in their last game, injuring Darius Garland. Any notes on the Kings before we get to the Lakers?
Yeah, just Fox, full workload really, and their pace was back up. The Kings have been really hanging around in the pace category even before Fox went down, so they were kind of back where they were from an offensive pace standpoint. So that was nice to see. So yeah, full workload. I love this matchup for him. The Lakers are really crappy with on-ball guard defenders with the way they're running this double wing lineup. There'll probably be a lot of Taurean Prince guarding him, so I mean he could just be blow by festivals there. So I really like him, especially when Domantas Sabonis really struggled in the first game against AD. He had a terrible scoring line there. So I think Fox is in a huge spot. He is my matchups cover boy today, so really excited about him. Keegan Murray, let me talk about him for a second. He picked up Mitchell. He was the Donovan Mitchell assignment. Yeah, and he was good. He really limited him. So I think that'll kind of keep his minutes safe, possibly guarding LeBron. We'll see if he can handle that. But Mike Brown spoke glowingly of Keegan's defense, and that could translate to really good offense and minutes, and matchups pretty good too, right? Lakers are a little bit more vulnerable to the three ball. So I think Keegan's in a pretty good spot, especially if Sabonis is going to get slowed down. And Herter out of the doghouse shooting the ball really well again. Obviously, these other guards are kind of phasing out. Davion Mitchell out of the rotation. Mike Brown basically said he's out. He said they're going to keep rolling with Keon Ellis, and he has to earn it, Davion, whether it's 10 seconds. I think the quote was 10 seconds, a minute, or 30 minutes, or whatever it was. Oh. So it's Keon Ellis off the bench. Obviously, Monk, JaVale McGee will cover the non-Sabonis minutes, but we could see some Vesenkov, who's been shooting the ball well. He's kind of locked in, so that's mostly the rotation there. And Duarte's kind of on ice. Let's see if we get some Duarte lines.
This Kings team, man, when you just have to have dudes that are willing to fight through a lot of screens against them, because the dribble handoff stuff they do with Sabonis, with him just kind of throwing, the old Spursian semi-moving screens where you like hand the ball off and kind of rotate with it to get a little bit of an extra angle on him. Man, Herter and Keegan were just absolutely in fuego from three and lighting things up. And then this Vesenkov dude is just willing to fire away as well. So they just got a bunch of guys around the Fox Sabonis pick and roll game that turns into these dribble handoffs that is just like, it's really, really difficult to stop. It's the same stuff that they were running last year that gives people problems. When their shooters aren't making shots, they look terrible, which is what we saw without Fox. And also when you don't have Fox, you lose a big component of that offensive chemistry. But man, they shot the ball great against Cleveland. I was lamenting Cleveland's defense, but honestly, it was a lot of great shot making, a lot of great offense from Sacramento in that game.
They're Lakers number one in the NBA in possessions on catch and shoot. That's just a huge component as you mentioned there. And there was a crazy three from Sasha Vezenkov. He just like sprints down the court and just hits a wide open three. It was one of the biggest threes of the game. It's like, oh man, that was just really great effort play from him to just get a great look.
Yep. Lakers side, they have not filed yet. It is the second night of a back-to-back. We talked at length about this scheduling during the course of this week for LeBron James with the in-season tournament game last night and then the national TV game tonight. I expect we'll get a questionable tag on LeBron at the very least.
Mhm.
I wonder if we'll get one on Anthony Davis just because it's a back-to-back situation. They thankfully did not have to play heavy minutes last night because they had a blowout win against Memphis. What are your expectations on what we'll see from the Lakers injury report later today?
Yeah, we talked about this too. LeBron returning from a minor injury is this, and we talked a lot about that, 30-minute limit that we saw in the opener. And then when he's coming back from injury, that could be the case. So that was kind of what we saw. We saw a 15-minute first half from him. Obviously, they blew the doors off the Grizzlies, which is happening way too often for the Grizzlies who had injuries. But yeah, I think he's going to have a minutes cap on him. Expecting him to play, playing 23 minutes on an easy night. Expecting him out there, national TV game, yada yada yada. So expecting him out there. Anthony Davis is just getting such a workload. He's crushed this matchup. Had a huge game earlier this year against them, 30, 16, and 12. As well. He had good numbers against them last year, 24, 14, and 3, and 34 minutes per game. So really, really big AD spot here against the bonus, whose rim defense is obviously quite bad. Same starting lineup. D'Angelo, just a ridiculous third quarter from D'Angelo. He was just making everything. Every time he touched the ball, just put it up and got all net. So great from him. Kind of needed it. He didn't close the previous two games with LeBron even out for one of them. So we'll see how that works. Obviously, Austin Reeves locked into the second man. 6-man role. Hit it over for us last night. That was very nice, even though the game got out of hand. And Rui Hachimura, flamethrowing. Minutes were way down, though. He was trending for teens minutes in the first half. We'll see if that happens. We'll see if they run, Joker defense, right, where Rui kind of guards Sabonis. They didn't do that in the first game, but I just wanted to note that. And Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish will start again. Christian Wood's minutes, I think, could be a little bit more in jeopardy here. Got a lot of garbage time.
22 for 35 from three will right a lot of wrongs for Lakers offense that was struggling a little bit kind of coming in. So really nice performance from them. All right. That'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. 8 games, under an hour. Take that, fan. We'll see Justin Fan on Friday, but we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Established Run's Injury Report Analysis Show before then. As always, if you are enjoying the content that we put out, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. And of course, check out the offerings that we have behind the paywall, establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more information. Our props package continue to go strong. A little bit of a rough night last night. We'll be back at it today. DFS package, in-season DFS content, Mike Gallagher's matchups, live shows 5 times a week, top plays 6 times a week, projections for every slate, every game, all updating as quickly as we get information out. I think we're doing... I think we're having a lot of success from subscribers this year, and I think it's because of all the hard work our team is putting in. I'm really proud of the work that we put in. So if you're interested in checking out any of the stuff that we do behind the paywall, we've got weekly, monthly, or seasonal packages available on the DFS side, just weekly packages on those props package. If you are interested, please make sure to read the FAQ. All right. As always, if you enjoy the content that we're providing, please consider pressing, holding firmly, caressing gently, smashing, whatever you'd like to do, that like button. Make sure it gets hit. Make sure that thumb goes up so we can help feed the algorithm. It helps feed our families, and it allows us to keep feeding you the NBA injury information analysis you need to set your lineups in DFS, season-long, fantasy, make your spread bets, your prop bets, so on and so forth. So smash that like button, feed the algorithm. It helps feed us. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.